Dear students, GPS CLAT Academy at Gyanodaya, a senior secondary school at Sikar, supports its students in their CLAT preparation. We have started a lecture series which will be delivered to you on a daily basis on YouTube.
The article talks about world trade. When you talk about world trade, you basically talk about architecture within which world trade is carried out. And that architecture is the architecture of WTO, then architecture of WIPO, and other international organizations. You know that WTO rests on two fundamental assumptions. First is the principle of comparative advantage, right? And the second is the most favored nation treaty. Principle of comparative advantage, that the nations which specialize in particular goods or services and they have the comparative advantage in producing the best in quality service or goods, they should exploit the comparative advantage and keep producing those goods. And for other items which they don't produce, they should rely on international trade and import those items. Simple. Comparative advantage, a simple insight, WTO principles, based on WTO principles, which is talking about the principle of comparative advantage. Now, how do you implement this insight? How do you actually envision a system of world trade by the most favored nation trade? Means whatever tariff, or for that matter, whatever non-tariff barrier you have erected for, or whatever concessions therein you have given to the other country, all those automatically become available to the goods and services that are procured from other countries, other member countries. So everything will come in, right? Everything. If suppose, say, India and China, both of them are members of WTO. If India starts importing rare earth minerals from Ukraine, and the import duty is set at suppose 3%, then the same import duty applies to all other countries which are keen on exporting to India the same stuff. So they benefit. So this benefits all the concerned countries, member countries. That is the most favored nation treatment. Automatically it gets extended. One concession granted to one country gets extended to another country as well. So that is the most favored nation treatment. Now the main point which is highlighted in this article is that apart from the tariffs that you are talking about, apart from the most favored nation treatment, which can be very well visualized in terms of the tariffs, there is another set of barrier to international trade. And those barriers are in the form of non-tariff barriers. Non-tariff barriers affect particularly the service-based products. For example, service-based products, Microsoft, suppose software building is there. Software building at present is under a lot of strain because now whatever earlier the engineers used to produce in terms of software, now AI can do the work much better. So the productivity has gone up, the cost has come down, but at the same time unemployment has spread all around us. So thousands of software engineers have already been put on the, they have already been laid off or put off by companies all over the globe because of advent of these open AI and all that, because of those companies. Anyway, that is a part. That is something a different topic. But then reverting back to the topic, the non-tariff barriers, for example, just to visualize, you have understood both of you have understood the paragraph very well, and I am very happy you have made a very comprehensive presentation. Now, just to add a little bit of visualization to how it is done. Software a company, say Motorola is operating in the country, and Motorola wants that their office in US-based office should benefit from the services of some software engineers who are working in their India office, or they want to hire somebody from India. So they they will apply those. They will ask the individuals to submit their application, or the company will follow the procedures prescribed to hire or engage overseas workers, and then it will be done. Now the visa procedures which are there, they can create a problem, because we, the third world countries, we have human resource for which we don't have jobs. We have human resource which is underdeveloped and which we need to develop, and that is why the government is massively trying for skill upbuilding. Skill building is going on a massive scale, sponsored by the government of India. Now we have access of people, and people, what do they want? People want mobility from one place to another, but then there are walls of visas which restrict this mobility. When you restrict the mobility, then our people are not able to get jobs abroad, and if they are not able to get jobs abroad, then the income of our people does not rise. The income of our state does not rise. The remittances don't rise. Remittances means the money which you send from abroad to your parents at home, or to your family members or near relatives at home. That is a remittance. From abroad you are earning, and your part of your earnings you transmit back, either in terms of savings or in terms of meeting the family expenditure. All those remittances are also blocked. So that way, to that extent, the economic processes are halted. So this is what the article talks about, that there are walls, there are barriers that are coming in the way of a truly globalized international trade that is there. Now the this kind of thing is basically reflected in your political science book also in class 12. If you have noticed that, can you tell me where it is, Priyanka? Can you tell me where it is, in which chapter? I will not ask Tanisha because she must not have done it as of now. Have you come on the chapter of globalization, Tanishka? Have you read that
Yes,
chapter?
sir. Yeah, I have read it. It is in the World Politics. It was, I think, seventh or eighth chapter, globalization.
What is it saying pertaining to this? I want to draw a linkage, because once you have that linkage, then things become clearer to you. What is it that you have read? Something similar to this you have read. What is it?
Globalization just make the foreign trade easy, and it in it helps in it makes the relations between different countries better, and globalization make it easy that we can get any type of product. For example, New Zealand is famous for their fruit kiwi. We can get that in
Okay,
our
okay,
India too,
that's okay.
and
Yes, globalization is basically about flows. This is the central thrust of that chapter. That it is talking about flows of capital, flows of ideas, flows of human beings, you know, flow of commodities, all these. So it is about flows. Now, where the problem arises in the north and south, that north is that is the global north I am talking about. That is the industrialized countries, the developed countries, the Western countries as we call it. So those countries are interested in capital flows, and we are also deeply interested in capital flows. We want them to come here and set their shop here, set their plant and manufacturing units here. We want them to, if they want to export, then they should make India a hub of their manufacturing operations and all that. So we are interested in their capital. But if the flow of capital and flow of human beings is not matched, flow of capital welcomed in the third world countries, but flow of human capital, human resource is not welcome in the global north. Global south is keenly interested on liberalization of visa rules and visa permits and the barriers that are there. but then the global north is not interested in all that. So it is a skewed kind of globalization in which the rich man is able to make more wealth, but the poor man stays where he is. All right, this is the critique that is offered in your class 12th NCRT, world politics, right? So this chapter brings about that aspect that what happens of the non-tariff barriers, the walls that you have erected, the walls against immigration, the walls against migration of workers, all those things you are not permitting. You are only interested in access to the market from the global south, and thereby capital can make more money. The capitalist can make more money, but a poor person who is there will not find a job out of all these processes. And if you talk about genres about whose theory on distributive justice you have read in class 11, if you recall, in John Rawls' theory of distributive justice, then it is all about percolation, how much it percolates down to the lowest strata. So that is the real marker of economic growth. It is not merely about measurement of economic growth in terms of GDP, but also in terms of how much human development has taken place because of these global processes. So this is one of the things that this article tries to highlight, that it is about non-tariff barriers, that the non-tariff barriers are being increased, are uh, are more in quantum compared to the global south. Those countries impose less. If we take India to represent the global south, then those countries impose um, lower non-tariff barriers compared to the developed countries. And the true spirit of the WTO requires basically liberalization of these visa rules and regimes. Now, you tell me one thing. Now, let me argue the point from the point perspective of the developed countries also. Do you want that Bangladeshis and your Burmese or Myanmari Rohingya should come and occupy your country? Would you welcome that kind of situation? What do you have to say? Would you welcome that kind of situation that Bangladeshis should come and sit in the northeast, and so much so that the original population thinks that they are at the receiving end because of this influx? Nobody would like that kind of population, you know. That is also a perspective. The global north's perspective may not be. We may say that it is a rich man's world, but at the same time, when it comes to us, when we are seen as a rich people, as India is seen as a rich people by her neighbors, and we also would not be so welcoming the people, so much so that our own population um, itself is reduced to a minority status. Therefore, these are complicated problems with no ready-made solutions. These are not merely transactional problems for which you have transactional or quick solutions. These are complicated questions that are there. We should not get into the habit of good and bad, classifying as good and bad. There are many shades of the problem, and ultimately, national interests are also important. Anyway, now let us come to the questions. Having discussed the thing in great detail, let us examine what the questions. 69th question, you have already marked it correct, so I will not attend to it. Which of the following, if true, would most weaken the author's argument? So, question number 70. Question number 70 says, weakening of the a nationwide survey reveals significant improvements in third language proficiency. This is not the one we are discussing. Just let me find out the correct passage. This is 22. We are on 9. Yeah, this one seems to be the passage 9 logical reasoning. Yes, this is the one. Which of the following is the author most likely to agree with? But this is correct, so I will not take it up. Based on authors, this is 30% correct. One of the kids has two kids have marked it incorrect. So let us take it up. Based on the author's arguments, which of the following, if true, would most weaken the author's arguments? So based on author's argument, which would most weaken the author's argument? All right, we have to see which is contrary to what the author says. The WTO recently concluded that non-tariff barriers in services have minimal impact on trade flow. That is not the central theme of the passage. He's saying that this kills the spirit behind the WTO. And India and the US have also made a joint statement for recognition and lowering of these barriers. Then he says, so this first is obviously correct. Second is Germany and UK began reducing NTBs following the Indo-US joint statement. So does this weaken the author's argument or does this strengthen the author's argument? This corroborates what the author says, so it does not necessarily weaken the argument, it actually strengthens the author's argument. India's tariffs on goods have risen recently. India's tariffs, now he is talking about tariffs, so he is not talking about non-tariff barriers. So we are not discussing that point number C. Licensing hurdles for Indian professionals abroad are being removed. Now, if licensing professionals hurdles are being removed, then in that case it means non-tariff barriers are being removed. But that will not go to weaken the author's argument. That will go to strengthen the author's argument, because the author's argument is that it is a barrier and we have to fix it. And they are going ahead in option D and fixing it. If they are fixing it, that means they are agreeing with what the author says. But the question is, you have to disagree with the author. You have to weaken the author's argument. And the first very well weakens the author's argument. The whole thrust of the passage seems to be that they have an impact on trade flow, and the first one directly contradicts that point by saying that there is minimal impact or no impact. Right. Now let us come to question number 56. This is 100% correct, so I will not touch it.
So this passage talks about India EV battery policy and strategic shift. India has removed the import
Yes.
duties on 35 EV batteries components and 28 mobile phone battery items, and it's aimed to boost the domestic manufacturing and the clean technology adoption. And announced in Union Budget 2025-26 to formalize in Finance Bill. And China BYD Super E platform enable 500-kilometer range with 5-minute charging and addressing the range anxiety. China produces 70% of global EV batteries, limiting India domestic manufacturing capabilities. Batteries account for 40% of EV cost, showing adoptions, especially in developing countries like India. And some strategic goals for India to reduce the dependence on China by integration the global EV batteries value chain, strengthen the trade ties with US, and also ensuring the reciprocal tariff don't affect the export, and decarbonize the transport sector through the policy driven innovations and investment in RD, and also establish India as an alternative supply chain hub for developed nations to expand battery productions, invest in technology, build strong trade partnerships, ultimately securing a sustainable foothold in clean energy market.
So this passage talks that India has removed taxes on some items used to make electric vehicle and mobile phone batteries. This decision was made in the 2025 Union Budget, and it will help more companies build these things in India and support clean energy. And right now, EV batteries are very costly and make up about 40% of the total cost of an electric car. And India doesn't have a strong battery making technology yet, while China is leading in this area. And in India, only two out of every 100 cars sold are electric, but electric two-wheelers are becoming more common in India. And India also wants to improve trade with countries like the US, but most important, it want to use less oil and make transport cleaner. And to succeed in the EV industry, India must be part of both the raw material and battery making processes. And all this will make batteries cheaper and help India become a strong and trusted player in the world EV market. That's all from my side.
Yes. So basically, the article has seems to have two main themes. And the article starts with stating that seeks to address a fundamental problem so far as EV registrations in India are concerned. The article says that only 2% of the sales that have taken place are of EV sales, whereas 45% of new car registrations in China are concerned with EV registrations, and they are not the traditional vehicle registrations. So, whereas EV has become very popular in China, the popularity has not taken off in India. Now, the author seeks to examine why this is so. What has come in the way of massive mass adoption of the electric vehicles, particularly electric cars. Electric two-wheelers are massive. There's a massive adoption of the same. But why cars have not been adopted in India on a mass scale? This is the problem. This is the problem to which the author identifies and tries to seek a solution for the problem. And he says that the major problem has been twofold. One is it cannot match the convenience of keeping a traditional combustion engine, a car driven by a traditional combustion engine, because it is very convenient when you go to the petrol and the transaction does not take more than a few minutes, and you are on the wheel once on the road once again. So that is as convenience as it could get. Whereas in case of electric vehicles, the time for charge is very big. Therefore, at the convenience front, the electric cars have not appeared as a substitute to the traditional combustion engine driven vehicles, and therefore the adoption rate of EV has been rather low in India. And now the author also uh, tries to examine as to how we can boost the adoption rate. One, he offers this as a solution that presently the technology is catching up. The lithium-ion technology that is there prevalent the world over at this present to power the to used in the powertrain of these electric vehicles to power their vehicle, to power their wheels. Basically, this sort of innovation has come about, and they claim that within 5 minutes you will get a charge of 500 miles. You can travel up to 500 miles, which will be a very big boost to mass adoption of the electric vehicles. And secondly, he says that if we really want the people to switch over to electric vehicles, then we will have to lower the cost. Then the author goes to examine as to how the cost could probably be lowered. He says that you have to integrate in the global supply chains. You have to integrate in the downstream as well as the upstream. Upstream are the mining operations. You have to participate more in the mining operations, mining of the rare earth elements which are used, which are valuable for making the battery. You have to participate there, and then you have to participate also in the manufacturing processes and become a part of the global supply chains, because at present China is a part of global supply chain, and because China is a part of global supply chain, it has 45% adoption rate, whereas in our case electric cars supply rate is 20 times less. So we have to become a part of the upstream, and we have to become a part of the downstream supply chains. Upstream will basically include the extraction technologies. Both of these will end up in having international tie-ups with firms which are active in the energy field. And basically, tie-ups will take place in the mining. The tie-ups will take place in the manufacturing. And once India becomes a part of the global supply chain, then obviously the prices in the domestic market would also see softening. And once the prices see softening, and once the new innovations strike this field, then the popularity of the electric vehicles, particularly the cars, will also grow just like it has grown in other parts of the world. Now, having done that, seen the main arguments in the passage and how the arguments are tied to each other, let us now examine the questions which follow. All right, let us take up the questions. Questions. First question, 59 to passage number 20, mock number 61, is correctly answered by all three of you, so I will not waste my time dwelling on something which you already know. Likewise, for the second one, which of the following is the author most likely to agree? Then, likewise, for the 61st one, this is a small article. Then, 62nd, there seems to be some problem. What would be the impact if India were not to integrate in the global EV battery supply chain? That we already discussed, that if we don't integrate, then we will not be able to lower the cost. And if we are not able to lower the cost, then we will not be able to have a massive adoption of the EV. And if we are not able to adopt EV on a massive scale, then in that case, we will not be able to adhere to the voluntary um, carbon emission targets that we have taken in the United Nations under the Paris Agreement, and that is we are going to phase out we will become a zero net carbon zero country by 2070. That is the pledge we have taken, and we will achieve significant reduction by 2030 itself. So all those targets are tied to our switch of the decarbonization of the transport sector, and EV is one of the ways in which the decarbonization of the transport sector takes place. But don't be under a mistaken impression. It is quite environmentally damaging for the extraction of these rare earth elements from the earth's womb, because they are really very. And now the countries have also started mining the ocean floor or ocean bed. So that is also going to cause a massive amount of pollution. But then at least with the electric vehicles, this is the palliative, that at least in the running, the carbon dioxide emissions are prevented. Extraction, the hydrocarbon extraction is also a quite energy intensive process, and particularly the shale technology, where the exhausted oil wells are used for extraction of the hydrocarbons. That is even more energy intensive activity. So that is also energy intensive activity. But extraction of these rare earth elements for use in the electrical vehicles is supposed to be more carbon intensive than. But the other part is not carbon intensive. Running the electric vehicles does not involve any burning of fossil fuels. So to that extent, at least it is prevented. And there are sources which claim that after a significant amount of travel mileage, then the benefits start flowing in, and then the zero carbon rates are achieved. So, so this is what this talks about. Now, I think I have this we have discussed. Costs will not come down unless we integrate into the global supply chains, both upstream as well as downstream. We have done it very in extensively, in extenso. What would be the impact if India were not to integrate? This is a straight question from the passage. India would become a global leader in EV manufacturing. That is only by integrating, not by. China has integrated 70% of the world's production takes place in China. They have integrated very well, so the domestic cost is very low. India would experience a decrease in foreign investment in technology. Now, these are all quite beside the point. Now let us see the last one. India's bioeconomy. No, we are not on bioeconomy. India could increase its share of the global EV market significantly without any challenges. No, there are challenges. It's not like that. Chali. Now let us BKT, and then please come to passage number 21.
So this passage talks about India bioeconomy has grown significantly, reaching $165 billion in 2024, and the Indian bioeconomy report projects further expansions, $300 billion by 2030 and $1 trillion by 2047. And the bioeconomy involves the industrial use of biological resources like plant, animal, and mic-
Yeah.
micro microorganisms to produce the goods and services such as
Yes.
biofuels, ethanol from sugarcane and corn, bioplastic and eco-friendly materials, replacing the traditional products, and biotechnology in medicine, healthcare, and agriculture. And companies in bioeconomy double in 3 years and project to reach 20,000 firms by 2030. And the five states account for two-thirds of the total bioeconomy value, and, and eastern and northeastern India contribute less than 6%. And there is challenges are there. Innovation scaling up and policy reform needed to sustain high growth. Regional imbalances must be addressed to ensure inclusive expansions. And India lags behind EU nations like Spain and Italy.
Yes.
And launched in 2024 to make India a global biomanufacturing hub and
Yes.
focusing on the bio-based chemicals, precision biotherapeutics, space and marine biotech, and climate resilience agriculture.
Yes.
It also encourages the research institutions, startup and industry collaborations, and national
Yes.
bioeconomy mission to oversee development and single window regulatory system to streamline biotech approvals.
So the passage says that India's bioeconomy, which means using natural things like plants, animals, and uh, microorganisms to make useful products medicines, fuels, or plastic alternatives. And in 2024, India's bioeconomy is worth 165 billion US dollar, and which is about 4.2% of the country's total income. And the government wants this to grow to 300 billion US dollar by 2030, and 1 trillion by 2047. And this field is growing fast, and the number of companies has nearly doubled in 3 years, and it could be double again by 2030. And these companies are making biofuels, vaccines, eco-friendly products, and doing biotech research. But most of the growth is happening in just five states like Maharashtra and Karnataka. And while some areas like the Northeast are left behind. And to help this growth, the government started a new plan called Bio E3 policy in 2024, and it wants India to be a world leader in using biotechnology in farming, health, space, and environment. But there are some problems too. The report says that India needs better laws, fast approvals, and must solve the issue of genetically modified crops, which are not yet fully followed. That's all for my.
The downpour.
Pardon me, sir, it was lagging a bit.
Yes.
So this
Yes.
article is
Yes.
basically about India's bioeconomy, its current
Yeah.
status, and its future potential.
Yes.
So, what is bioeconomy? So, a bioeconomy is basically how much biological resources and that production is due to biological and natural processes. So, for example, biogas is due to decomposition of decaying plant matter and animal waste. So this would come under bioeconomy since it's generated from natural processes. Uh, this includes agriculture as well, and to a certain extent, healthcare, since medicines are also derived from bacteria. It may or may not include manufacturing since bioplastics are also under natural processes. So this is really the scope of the bioeconomy. Now, bioeconomy contributes a lot since it's in India and it's valued at $165 billion, which is 4.2% of the GDP. Now, its growth potential is estimated to reach about $300 billion by 2030 and even 1 trillion by 2047, which is as per the India Bioeconomy Report. To leverage this bioeconomy, the government has set a Bio E3 policy, which aims to make India a global manufacturing hub for bio-related things and promote R&D in the biotechs. Now, the benefits of Bio E3 policy is that it will boost the economic growth by targeting the bioeconomic sector. It will also increase the environmental sustainability since uh, most the materials produced under the bioeconomy are eco-friendly and they won't pollute the environment. So that's a really good thing. And also increase the employment since it takes a lot of hands to do this sort of work. The focus of the policy is primarily to build a network of universities. This includes startups and industries as well. It will offer incentives and policy support for the innovation in biotech. It will also address regulatory barriers so that startups and research isn't hindered as much as it would have normally. Now, the article also talks about the imbalance in the contribution to bioeconomy by Indian states. So it says that Maharashtra, Karnataka, Telangana, Gujarat, and Andhra Pradesh, these five states contribute over two-thirds of the entire bioeconomy, and the eastern or eastern India contribute less than 6%. And says that in order to boost bioeconomy, we must address this inequality and thin it out. It also says that infrastructure and policy reforms are needed to boost the bioeconomy. The article recommends setting this national bioeconomic mission and produce a single window regulatory mechanism to ease the manufacturing and research in biotech. That's the core of the article.
The article basically talks about the use of biological products at an industrial scale. They call it biotechnology. Right now, um, India is supposed to be making strides in this field, and it has already become comparable to the United States. But then there are various countries which are ahead of India, particularly the European countries. Italy is one of the countries that is ahead of India. They claim 20% of the GDP to be devoted to biotechnology products. Now, what is biotechnology? An example, if you ask me as to what is this. Now, you can give the example of BT cotton, right, which has been introduced for commercial cultivation in India. That is an example of biotechnology product, right? Another example which the passage also gives is regarding the use of ethanol. Now, India has, to my mind, if I recollect correctly, India has already started ethanol production in a big way, and they have the target, or they might have achieved the target of replacing the um, 30% of the fuel, fossil fuel, by ethanol-based fuel, biofuel, biodiesel they call it, and that is another one. Yet another one is the GM mustard, DMH11, which has been which is yet to be launched, but this is also proposed, and which is developed by Delhi University. Then just like BT cotton, you have BT brinjal. And these, what is peculiar about these crops is that these crops are genetically modified crops. Genetic modification, you will understand, you will know that we have read an article on CRISPR technology. Do you remember that, or you have forgotten? CRISPR technology allows us to do gene editing, identify the genes which are responsible for particular functions, and we can then slash the gene, a particular slice of the chromosome which isolate the gene and introduce it in the genome of the organism, and that way a positive outcome could be had. That is exactly what these BT cotton and BT brinjal, and now maize is also supposed to be developed. Then chickpea is also there, and there are certain of these genetically modified or modified crops which are in the pipeline, and all of these will use gene editing and insertion of the gene in the genome of the plant, such that the plant has desirable characteristics. One of the desirable characteristics could be having resistance to the increased temperatures which are being seen, and after a while, if the temperatures keep growing under global warming, obviously the plants will not be able to sustain themselves. Therefore, what we will require is we will require biotechnology, deployment of biotechnology at a massive level to make the plants resilient enough to resist the onslaught of the increasing temperatures. So, and then you have other uses of biotechnology, bioplastics. It's said that the next Nobel Prizes, when they will go to the people who will discover the replacement of plastics, and who will tell us how to predict the seismic waves, the earthquake waves well in advance. Those are the upcoming areas, and here the article suggests that bioplastics offer a way out of the plastic mountains of plastic that we have created, and the mountain is still growing. So those concerns can also be addressed by biotechnological products. Now, I would advise you to read the Ministry of um, um, this Genetic Engineering Approval Committee, which is there. They maintain a page. On that, that will get you will get the latest update on what is the stage of introduction of genetically modified crops in India. Right now, biotechnology is supposed to be the next big thing, and there is a national mission of biotechnology which has been devoted to it. They call it bio E3 that has been deployed, and basically India wants to become a major hub for manufacturing, biotechnology manufacturing and research and development. So these so that we are able to also follow the example of those countries which have higher higher proportion of their GDP contributed by bioproducts, biotechnology products. It's interesting that even in when we study the rights of disabled candidates, you will notice that biotechnology has an important role to play there also. Telepathic devices which are being developed by companies such as um, I think one is this palindrome is there. Then there are some other country companies as well. I think Starlink is also Starlink, or there is some other company which basically which is that
Neuralink.
Neuralink. Sorry, not Starlink. Starlink is in the news, so Starlink came to the mind. Neuralink went outside the mind. So you see, they are developing these implants which can be put into the brain, and that way, if you want to see, you will be able to see. You know, and you if those who are not able to hear will be able to hear. Those will be great advances. In fact, Stephen Hawking was a great professor. You must have heard his name. He was a very great astrophysicist, and people gave him the stature of the scientist after Newton. So he was able. He was a paraplegic. He suffered from a severe disability. Entire body got paralyzed, and still he was able to contribute massively to the growth of science. And in fact, wrote the science bestseller, which is A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking, which is the world over, which has um, and he could not move his arms, he could not move his limbs, he was confined to the wheelchair all the time. But then by the use of technology, all these problems are overcome, and he could communicate without having the strength in his vocal cords because of the paralysis that he suffered. And the software would point out the options that his thoughts the thoughts were putting forward, his brain signals were putting forward, and then he will identify by the twitch of his one of his cheek muscles which had slight movement into it. And that, so you can see technology can be a very big game changer for a person who is totally paralyzed. For him also, the barriers that are erected by the disability in interaction with the environment, those barriers can be done away with the help of technology. So these bioplastics and these biotechnology products are supposed to be the future. And national mission, bioeconomic mission, is also recommended. So this is what this article basically talks about. And now this is a logical reasoning article, but there are so many things which are added up to it. That is genetically modified organisms, genetically modified crops, then bio E3 policies, and therefore, and what part of GDP is biotechnology products, and which so though this may be a logical reasoning passage, but actually it has implications for current affairs also. So when you have thoroughly studied this paragraph, you will not have any problem either in current affairs or in logical reasoning if something comes which is centered on the themes presented in this passage. Now, having said that, let us go to the questions one after the other. First question is, which of the following is the author most likely to agree with regarding India's bioeconomy? So India's bioeconomy is poised to remain stagnant due to limited adoption of biotechnology. It is poised to take off, not remain stagnant, as our reading of the passage shows. Supposed to be taking us towards 1 trillion, 1 trillion from present 165 billion. So that is obviously incorrect. Second reason is obviously correct. India's bioeconomy can grow rapidly with potential to reach $1 trillion by 2047. India's bioeconomy growth will be limited to the pharmaceutical industry. No, this is what he says. He says that IT, research, these are the fastest growing sectors. Half of it is devoted to one part, and there are other parts also, right? India's bioeconomy growth will rely solely on foreign investments and imports. No, this militates against the presence of a national mission, Bio E3, that kind of thing, and also the recommended national mission on biotechnology products. So we have discussed the 4 options. Now let us come to the next one. Based on author's arguments, which are the following, if true, would reduce the decline in value of India's bioeconomy? Reduce the decline in value of India's bioeconomy, convoluted kind of thing. That means increase the value of India's bioeconomy. What would augment the value of India's bioeconomy? Right. This is government introduces stricter regulations on biotechnology and bio manufacturing regulations. If they are senseless regulations, they can kill one sector. India achieves significant innovation and removes infrastructure bottlenecks in the bioeconomy. This definitely would reduce the decline, that is, promote the bioeconomy. India reduces its focus on biomanufacturing and no, it has to increase its focus. Bioeconomy in India faces more regulatory uncertainty, especially in agricultural biotechnology. This is correct, because you see this BT cotton was introduced, BT brinjal was introduced. These introductions saw legal fights of around 1 decade. So For 10 years, the cases continued in the Supreme Court, and presently also the cases are pending in the Supreme Court. So this is correct that regulatory uncertainty has been surrounding this thing. This is also correct. So we have to choose between B and D. But at present, it doesn't. Bioeconomy in India faces more regulatory uncertainty. It has faced, yes, but then over the years, it has become those objections have been met. Those objections have been overcome by persuasive information which has been put forth. चलिए आगे. 66th question everybody has marked correct. 67th also everybody has marked correct. 68th question I need not touch, I think, because this is word based. Then we come to passage number 22nd. The flawed push for a third language. We have done so many on this language front. We have done so many on the delimitation front. We have done a lot of work on these passages.
The passage talks about the National Education Policy 2022 that
Yes.
mandates the learning third language, but critics argue that it ignored the financial, practical, and cognitive challenges. Teaching a third language is costly, require teacher requirement, training, textbook, and technology, and making it unavailable for rural schools. L3 is limited. School cannot accommodate many languages, pushing Hindi or Sanskrit in non-Hindi, and also reduce the need for classroom-based multilingual education. And countries like China, South Korea, and Brazil promote English education for global competitiveness, where NEP 2020 prioritized the Sanskrit. Singapore adopted a bilingual model, English plus mother tongue for economic growth and social harmony. And prioritizing the English strengthened Singapore economy, making it global hub. And the census 2011 claims that 43.63% of the Indians speak Hindi, which includes the 53 independent languages. Actual Hindi speakers make up only 25% of the population. Critics argue that NEP 2020 forces a rigid three-language policy instead of investing in English and core subjects like science and AI. A two-language model like Tamil Nadu's successful approach could be more effective.
So this passage talks about the three language policy in our new education policy 2022, and the national education policy 2022 wants students to learn three languages, but this plan has many issues, and most students in India are already struggling to read and write properly in their mother tongue and English, and surveys show that learning outcomes in these two languages are poor, and there is no clear proof that adding a third language helps. And learning a third language adds extra pressure on students, and it can cause confusion between languages and reduce the time spent on important subjects like science, maths, or even on improving English. For students who speak languages very different from Hindi, learning Hindi becomes even harder, and teaching three languages in public school, it also costs a lot, and many schools don't have enough teachers, books, or training for even two languages. And the policy says students can choose any language, but in reality, schools can only offer one or two options, often forcing Hindi or Sanskrit. And this policy also ignores the power of modern technology. Today, students can use apps and AI tools to learn new languages easily, but there is no need to force everyone to study a third language in class. And Hindi is not spoken by the majority people in India, and real Hindi speakers are only about 25% of the population. And forcing Hindi as a national language, it can create more problems than unity. A better example for this is Singapore, where students learn just English and their mother tongue, and the country is doing very well. And instead of forcing a third language, India should focus on teaching two languages well, English for job opportunities and global use, and the mother tongue for culture. And making students learn three languages without clear benefits, good planning, or even support is not a smart decision. That's the argument of author.
So this article is basically a critique of the national educational policy community. It basically criticizes that the national educational policy it promotes this idea of a third language more or less due to a more cultural reason rather than a practical reason, and that's simply not feasible. So the critiques it makes about this policy is that there is no evidence that shows the effectiveness of a third language in schools. No research has been done on this part, and it also says that surveys have shown that students who learn third language almost usually end up struggling with their first and second languages, and it also increases the cognitive load on the student, especially if they are not fluent in their previous two languages. It also criticizes how the Indian education system is simply not robust enough to implement this third language properly. And it also says that students should be free to choose what language they should learn. And the article also says that there is this ideological bias in this policy. It says that this policy lays a overemphasis on Sanskrit and Hindi compared to other regional languages, and that the language policy is more symbolic than skill oriented. It the mostly ignores the linguistic diversity. It so basically due to the ideological bias, it ends up promoting Hindi as a unified language when only 25% actually speak Hindi, and disregards the multilingual federal structure of the Indian state and risks the linguistic position. Now, it also makes a comparison to the Singaporean language model, where the uh, students learn bilingual, which is English plus mother tongue, whatever the mother tongue may be, Chinese or Tamil, but English is the must. Whereas in the NEP 2020 policy, we must learn three languages, a third additional language. We have in Singapore they have a multilingual choice of English, which may be neutral or global, plus their language of choice. Now it's much more flexible compared to the NEP 2020, where students can learn whatever language they wish to, and it's much more practical approach compared to whatever the NEP promotes, since not to mention most people don't even won't even speak their third language in their entire life and just skip it. Like in the case of Sanskrit, where a lot of people learn Sanskrit in fifth, sixth, and seventh, and just forget about it for the rest of their life. And it also focuses on more on career growth rather than being a cultural symbol. So really, it says that Singapore's model is more pragmatic and supports this career readiness that Indian education system in with this NEP 2020 simply doesn't promote, and in fact goes against it. And that we need a more flexible two-language system in India, which is based on the Singaporean model.
So basically, the article is a passionate plea for removal of Hindi as the third language. There are three main arguments which the author has presented. So the first argument the author presents is that the policy of having a third language is not wise from a practical perspective. That is the first argument he presents. Practical perspective in the sense that its utility is not very high. Now, he also argues that if there is a migration from the north to south, and promotion of the Hindi will not actually facilitate that migration because there is uneven economic development. People from north, when they visit the south, where Hindi is not a welcome language, is going to create further cultural maladjustments. So, from a practical perspective, also, the same practical perspective can be applied at a global level also. Why lose out the English advantage that you already have? Because there are multiple languages spoken in India, and those multiple languages have several dialects which vary from territory to territory, from across the geographies. So it would not be wise from a practical perspective to go get into this. And also, the author points out to certain studies which have been conducted, to the certain surveys which have been conducted, and he says that students are not doing well according to those surveys. Some international survey is also referred to in which India has scored very abysmally. And likewise, in the National Achievement Survey, also the basic proficiency in two languages or itself is not of such a level as to take on a third language also. And besides, from a practical perspective, once again, the author suggests that the countries are integrating AI tools in the education, in educating their children from a very young age. And instead of doing that, we are pushing towards cultural issues. So these are basically some of the practical aspects that the author says that it would be a flawed idea to impose Hindi on as a third language. Then he goes on to the second aspect of the argument, which is basically an argument of cultural nationalism. Argument of cultural nationalism, he says that look, Bangladesh was created because the Bengalis were given a second fiddle treatment. So they were treated as second citizens because they were not because of the speech, because of the language Bengali, and because they were not integrated into the mainstream of Urdu language. And the world over also there are examples where cultural nationalism has not paid dividends. He also compares the examples of Germany and other countries which have followed the path of cultural nationalism. But he then says that which one is better. One has to choose from a monocropping wasteland or from a rich biodiversity forest land. Obviously, the the choice would be in the rich biodiversity forest land. So he says that why to go for a monochromatic pattern, and why not have the multilinguistic pattern? Why not have cultural vibrancy by extending the policy of tolerance and mutual respect instead of following the policies of cultural nationalism, which could basically be divisive. Culture is always a divisive in its nature. We have studied in your class 11th, and I'm sure you will recall that cultural nationalism, in the chapter on nationalism you have studied in class 11th in the political theory, that nationalism based on culture is always divisive, whereas nationalism based on certain constitutional goals is always unifying. I am sure you must be recalling all that. Cultural nationalism should be shunned, and instead of cultural nationalism, our our patriotism should be towards nation building ideas, and we should have in mind the goals which are enshrined in our preamble to the constitution, which are goals of fraternity, which are goals of justice, economic, political, social. So those are the goals to which we should be aligned, and not to the goals of ideals are more important than culture related things, because culture tends to be divisive. Then the last limb of the argument on which the author touches the the argument of facilitative transfer. That is cognitive facilitative transfer. What he means by cognitive facilitative transfer is that for those students whose mother tongue is Hindi, whose lingua franca is Hindi, basically for them learning the Hindi language would be easy for them at a higher level, because there is a cognitive transfer, facilitative transfer. That is, your earlier learning and your present learning. Your earlier learning is going to contribute to your better learning in terms of the present. But for those students for whom this is not a mother tongue, for those students there will be a cognitive load which is going to be increased, and there will be no facilitative cognitive transfer. Facilitative cognitive transfer means, suppose you are adding 2 and 2 and you know that 2 and 2 is equal to 4. Now somebody asks you that you have to add 4 and 2, and you quickly add up and you say that it is 6. Now what is happening here is your knowledge of adding 2 and 2 and your knowledge of adding 1 and 1 facilitates your acquisition of knowledge of bigger sums. Now there are bigger sums and bigger sums, and the sums which are going into millions and trillions and arabs and crores and like that. They keep on growing, but you are not deterred, because there is a cognitive transfer. There is a facilitative cognitive transfer. But suppose something is totally missing and the facilitative cognitive transfer is not there, then it becomes a cognitive load. Then there is nothing with which to draw associations with, and students are totally at sea, and then the kind of cognitive effort that will be acquired would be overwhelming. If the effort is overwhelming, then the cognitive challenge would be overwhelming, and if the cognitive challenge is overwhelming, then the students are not going to relish the experiment, and the learning that will take place will be taking place at the cost of other important fields such as the STEM fields, that is the science, technology, mathematics, and all those fields. So this, in essence, there are three predominant arguments which can be identified in the passage. If somebody tells me that you have to sum it up in 3 lines, so you will talk about cultural nationalism, you will talk about cognitive facilitation in acquisition of a new language, or a cognitive versus a cognitive load, and you will talk about the practical aspects of introduction of a new language in view of realities and in view of expenses and all those things which have been discussed in the passage. Having discussed this, let us quickly go to the questions on this. I am on question number 69. Which of the following is the author most likely? This is correct, so I will not take up question number 69. Then there is 70th. Which of the following, if true, would most weaken the author's argument? Which weaken the author's argument? All right. A nationwide survey reveals significant improvement in third language proficiency among students post the new education policy. Now that will completely kill the author's argument. Most students in rural India do not have access to AI-powered translation tools. So AI, that is also one of the arguments. The author says that you can leave it to the students to use this. So this will definitely go to weaken the author's argument. A majority of students show a preference for studying 3 languages in school. Then that is also going to reduce the author's argument, weaken the author's argument. Regional languages are increasingly replacing English in professional domains in India. Now, regional languages in replacement of English, the author does not talk about English and whether we should give up the English. So this seems to be peripheral. Majority of students show a preference. I'm on item C for studying 3 languages in school. This kills the author's arguments, but this is not about student preferences. This is actually about a policy. The policymakers' preferences are being talked about. So, most students in rural India do not have. This is also do not have access to AI-powered translation tools. So this is also going to lower the author's this thing. But then the most important thing is that nationwide survey reveals significant improvements in third language proficiency among students. If that is the case, then the case seems to be so it completely demolishes the author's arguments about this thing. The all arguments about cognitive load and facilitative cognitive transfer become redundant if A is correct, right? So I would rather A would be the correct answer. Now let us see 71. All the students are right. 72. Which of the following, if true, would most strengthen the author's arguments? So first one is multilingual students in Estonia perform better on international tests than their monolingual. So this is going to strengthen or weaken the author's argument. This is going to weaken the author's argument. Multilingual students are doing better than those students who are devoting more time to science and technology. Therefore, this is going to weaken the author's argument. Students forced to learn a third language score lower in science and math. This is going to strengthen the author's argument because the whole argument proceeds on this basis that you are taking away time from those subjects which matter more and you are teaching them languages which will not really solve the problems of the future. Sanskrit has recently gained popularity as a spoken language in rural communities. All right, seems to be a peripheral issue. India's international ranking in educational achievements has risen in the last decades. If that is the case, then it will weaken the author's argument. It will not strengthen the author's argument because India's international rankings in education system have been totally unacceptable, and so much so that India walked out of the competition instead of facing the challenge. Instead of facing the challenge, they have come up with ruining the educational system further by imposing imposing acquisition of a third language. Then 73rd. This is 100% correct, therefore I will not touch it. 74th, the author's statement about language similarity and language learning is, if true, provide most support for which of the following conclusions? So language similarity and language learning. He is talking about facilitative cognitive transfer. So let us examine. Students from Indo-Aryan language backgrounds should be exempted from learning Hindi. So language similarity if to provide most of the face. All right. So what will be the correct this thing? They should be exempted. This is not what the national policy. This is not what he is talking about when he is talking about facilitative cognitive transfer. The exemptions are not talked about. Language acquisition success depends partly on the learner's native language. Success partly depends, yes, if you are already a Hindi spoken individual, then learning higher courses in Hindi will not be a problem for you. This is one of the examples of facilitative cognitive transfer. Trilingual model benefits all students equally regardless of region. No, it doesn't. If the third language happens to be Hindi, then south countries to the south of India have a problem. Only Dravidian languages should be promoted as third languages. Now, this is neither here nor there. Right. Come to 75th. What would be the impact if AI-powered tools were dominant over traditional language instruction? All right. If AI-powered tools are dominant over traditional language instruction, then students would learn all languages more effectively. Now, this is students may be expected to do this, but this outcome will come, we can't say. This impact is going to be brought about, we can't say. Schools would require fewer language teachers. AI-powered tools are dominant over traditional language instruction. Then schools would require fewer language instructors. This also is doubtful. The cost effectiveness of self-directed third language learning would diminish. What would be the impact if AI-powered tools were not dominant over traditional language instruction? All right. The question is that those tools are not dominant over traditional language instruction. Means AI-powered tools have taken over the language instruction. If AI-powered tools are dominant over traditional language instruction, we give more importance to AI-powered tools and less to traditional language instruction, then what would be the outcome? And if AI-powered tools are not giving that much importance but traditional language instruction is given more importance, then what is going to happen? So he's saying students would learn all languages more effectively. This we can't say. Schools would require fewer language teachers. Now this, yes, this is correct. If AI powered tools you are using for language instruction, then definitely you will require fewer support staff. The cost effectiveness of self-directed third language learning would diminish. Cost effectiveness would diminish or would increase? What do you say? The cost effectiveness of self-directed third language learning would diminish because AI powered tools are not available to everyone. Regional languages would disappear over time. This is neither here nor there. So if AI powered tools are dominant over traditional language instruction, then in that case he is saying that cost effectiveness of self-directed third language learning would actually diminish. But this is correct. Why am I taking it up? Then there is 76. This is also correct. Why should I take it up? Then 77th question. This is okay. 78th question. This is also okay. What is 79th? This is also something else. So this finishes this part. All right. This finishes mock paper 61. Tomorrow we'll take up mock paper 62, and we will take up both the legal part as well as the that is logical reasoning part. Any suggestions how we can do better? Anishka will say that you increase the frequency of the question papers. Is that right? Yes, Anishka.
Yes, sir.
Anishka will say that you increase the frequency of the question papers. Yes, Priyanka, any suggestions from your side?
Like the other party suggested, maybe increase the frequency.
Frequency of papers?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir, only
Yes.
the review is remaining in mock paper 67. So it's not possible.
Beta, come once again. I did not catch what you said.
Sir, I asked from Zubair sir, he's saying that only review is remaining.
Yes, review is remaining because without review, if you send a paper, then it will end up wasting time of students. It will not be a proper thing. It has to be properly reviewed. It has to be redone. Various parts are redone, and thereafter only the papers are sent. They are not sent just like that. Review, but don't worry, we will increase the frequency. Obviously, we can't complete the entire syllabus at this pace. If we do one paper per day, we will have to, at some point in time, we will have to increase the frequency to doing, say in 2 days, doing 3 papers or doing 2 papers per day. We will have to do that because the material is almost overwhelming, and the papers that are being finished, we are struggling to keep even one paper per day, which is not a happy thing to do. Okay? So we will increase the frequency of the papers. At least we should be able to do 3 papers three papers every 2 days. So 1.5 paper per day. We will slowly increase the frequency, and then it will become okay because we have a big backlog of April papers, and we have already entered into May, and almost a week of May is also gone. So we better hurry up and catch up. Right, December to December to March has progressed very well. But beginning March, we have increased the sources from which we take the papers. And when you increase the sources, then sources multiply, and sources multiply. But your pace remains the same. Then it's going to create a maladjustment. So we will have to, going forward, we will have to increase the number of papers we produce, and you attempt. Both of them have to go up significantly. All right, beta. See you tomorrow. Please come prepared with pre-reads for 62 song.
The lecture series revolves around discussion of mock papers. You can request us for the concerned mock papers. If you intend to join us in our daily discussions, you are most welcome.